Welcome to the MYS Virtual Hangout. Here's your host, MYS Music Director, Raúl Gómez.
Good afternoon and welcome to Hangout 54. Our guest today is Evan Kuhlmann. Formerly a bassoon player with the Oregon Symphony, he is now the contrabassoon player with the Los Angeles Philharmonic. He is familiar to MYS students because he was also a regular coach for sectional rehearsals when he was here in Portland. And we are very excited to welcome him to this Hangout. Evan, welcome to the MYS Hangout.
Hi, nice to see you, Raúl.
How's it going?
Going all right. Finally got some of the smoke to blow through, and
Yes.
and the weather's a little bit cooler than it was. So yeah.
So you're currently in LA, you're in Los Angeles?
I'm in LA right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you been coming to Portland often since you moved out there?
At first, I was. The way that things worked out, I kept playing with Oregon for another 3 or 4 months, and I would just kind of like to give time to transition for both orchestras. I would try to do the biggest contrabassoon parts and bassoon parts in each place.
Sure.
Yeah, but eventually it got to the point. I passed through recently, but it was just on the way to Washington State, where I got my bassoons had their annual maintenance.
Oh, okay.
I call it like a spa trip for them.
And you do that once a year. That's a longer trek now.
It is, yeah. I thought about flying, but with everything, I just thought I am just going to try to drive and do it in 2 days, basically. Just stop. The midpoint was kind of near Ashland, Oregon.
Yeah.
So I spent one night there, and I just hauled all the way up. My parents are still in Seattle. That's where I grew up.
Sure.
And my sister as well. She plays in the Symphony there. She's the fourth horn player.
Cool. Okay. So that allowed you to spend a little time with family. So I imagine you didn't drive right back.
Yeah, I dropped the bassoons off. It takes I dropped off 3 instruments: my bassoon, my contrabassoon, and kind of my backup bassoon.
Yeah.
And it took about 3 days for my repairman to just do everything. It cost, well, yeah, more money than I had.
Sure.
It's so important,
Right. Yeah, and I actually yesterday I was interviewing a young musician from MYS who was an oboe player.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about just, how intricate and how complex these woodwind instruments are, specifically, double reeds. Like,
yeah.
She was telling me that when she was younger, I mean, she's still young, at one rehearsal, she decided that it would be a good idea to tighten some of these screws of her instrument. And it didn't go well at all.
Yeah, it's funny, like a lot of them, they have to have a little bit of give.
Yeah.
So you can't have them all the way tight, but you don't want them to be loose, certainly. It's just a right amount. There's some oil, that goes into all of this, and eventually that kind of like dries up and it gets gunky, and so the action has to be just right. The bassoons, like, they never feel better than when they come straight off of off of my repair person's workbench,
Sure, yeah.
And then they just spend the next year kind of going out of adjustment slowly. And I try to do little things myself, but I think it's best to just, leave it to the experts.
Right, yeah. I mean, even you, a professional with so much experience, you still take your instruments to this master craftsman, right? I
always tell students, so often a student will come into a lesson and say something's not quite right, and I'll look at it and I'll kind of know, okay, well, this is what it is, and I can get it to work again, but I can't get it to 100%. There's just people who devoted their lives to this. I'm sure for violin it's the same thing, where it's like, you might be able to move a sound post, or something, or is it the bridge, the sound post, something like those kind of adjustments. Like, I mean, I can get an instrument to play again, but I try not to have students thinking of that as I'm not a repair person,
Yeah, I know, it's like magic. This happened to me about maybe 7 years ago, that for the previous 3 years or so, my violin just wasn't sounding the same. after an outdoor gig, and it was
Yeah.
it was raining outside. I was in New Orleans, so it was warm and humid. And after that gig, my violin changed. And I tried, I brought it to a couple of people, and we tried a couple of different things. But then I brought it to this guy, a master luthier, and he looked at it and he said, just leave it with me overnight. I came back the following day. I played my open D, and I just put my violin down and gave him a big hug. So I don't know what he did, but it's like
Voila.
magic.
Yeah, it's so they're bassoons and oboes especially, they're so finicky,
Yeah.
The reeds too, but that at least you have something you can do about. I tell students, there are these things that we kind of, other things in our lives we might be able to, like, I don't know, leave like a gym bag in the trunk overnight or something.
Right, sure.
But if you leave, I had this happen with a student where they left their bassoon in the trunk overnight, and the next day all the pads fell off.
Yeah.
It was too cold. If it's too hot, all these little things. It's it's very temperamental. You have to treat it more like a pet than I don't know,
Yeah,
a
absolutely.
baseball bat.
And you have a sort of a backup bassoon, and do you use that instrument for outdoor performances, or?
Usually, yeah. But right now I'm loaning it to a student. So
Yeah,
it's a former student, I should say.
sure.
But it's an instrument that in the past I used in outdoor performances. I played a wedding once, and it was about 98 degrees outside.
Whoa.
And, it just, if you can't, the finish on the instrument, it's like a violin, it'll just start to melt in sunlight, but then also the reed won't function. So I was using a plastic reed. It's
Sure.
a nightmare. Yeah.
Sure.
It's, sometimes I wonder, like, who let me play this? Why didn't I just play the trombone? But
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
you're in for a penny, you're in for a pound, I guess.
Well, so speaking of instrument selection, let's go back in time, and I
Sure.
want to hear about your beginnings in music. You grew up in Seattle. What
Yep.
was your first instrument?
It was the piano.
Yeah.
And let's see. My mom had an upright piano that I think she had grown up with, and she inherited that from her mom, and so that moved into our house, and that was in the living room. Money was tight, and it was always sort of a matter of, like, what's the thing that maybe we're going to be able to, like, to do one thing, what's it going to be? And my mom played the oboe, but also was a rock drummer, and my dad was a rock drummer. And so I think between them, they sort of thought, well, the piano is like a good starter instrument. I think it's a great instrument, period. I still play whenever I can, but it's I'm really grateful because I just think it's it's polyphonic. You can play chords and and really experience harmony in a different way than when you're playing like the bassoon, for example. Although
You must
I
have
started in
played
the
drums
Suzuki
too.
method, I think at 4 or 5, and the early classes you're really not playing very much. You're doing rhythm games and clapping and singing. I don't think I learned how to read music for at least the first year. Just really, but I was playing like C major chords on the piano, and learning tonic dominant relationships, and so I know every Suzuki school does it differently, but I started in the Suzuki school at Seattle. I had a wonderful teacher named Pamela Chang, and she was just terrific. I owe a lot to her.
Yeah, and no drums. You must have, if your parents had drums in the house, you must have played drums too.
I would bang on them, but it's, there's something about it, like the coordination of putting a beat together.
Yeah.
It's just really like, I don't know if I've seen videos of, 4 and 5-year-olds who just can do amazing things at the drum set.
Yeah.
I don't think I was one of them, There was always sort of this thing in the house of like, why wasn't I playing the drums?
Yeah.
But my sister and I, neither of us really did it. My sister started on violin. She's just a couple years younger than me.
Sure.
She started in the Suzuki method also. And I think it was just sort of, to some degree, those instruments were chosen for us, and I'm actually not mad about it. You know, I eventually, quit classical piano, and my sister famously threw her violin on the ground in the middle of a group class at like age 6, much to the horror of my mom in front of all these other parents, right? And just sort of announced, I'm done.
Wow.
But she took some piano lessons later. She found the flute, and that led to the French horn, and that was the instrument that she fell in love with. For me, I started playing the clarinet. My mom, being an oboist, had a clarinet that she had played, I think, a little bit in, like doubling in a Broadway kind of a gig, and so we had one in the basement. I played that in the school band, which was more of like a social thing for me than anything else. I still thought I was going to be a piano player. And I had started to play some jazz piano also because the school had a jazz band. So I was in public schools in Seattle. I was very fortunate to meet another one of the educators who would be really profound influence on me, which was my junior high school band director, Robert Nat. And one of the things that I admired so much about him was that he had the same amount of discipline that he, would approach both classical and jazz performance. We didn't get into jazz band, and he was like, okay, now we don't have to play in tune anymore, or we don't have to blend. We don't have to give cues to each other. He really, that jazz band operated a bit like a chamber ensemble at some times. But then in the concert band, it wasn't just like a throwaway class for him. It was important that we play like cornerstones of the concert band literature, as well as modern pieces, and it's important that we play together. We'd be tight as an ensemble, which was another thing that kind of was informed from the jazz bands. So I played jazz piano. I played clarinet really badly, never practiced. Again, it was a total social thing. I was in the third clarinet section. Our band was so big that we had like several rows of clarinets. I was somewhere in the back, and I saw the bassoon player, and I kind of asked my parents about it. My mom knew about the bassoon because she had been in a Baroque group with bassoon players over the years. And I think I asked her about it. She played me the opening of the Rite of Spring, and it was just not what I expected. Certainly the middle school band parts for bassoon don't go that high. The opening of the Rite of Spring by Stravinsky. But I just said that,
Oh, wow.
like that. So I want to do that.
Kind of immediate.
It's all things, and I got so lucky that the Seattle Youth Symphony program had it was one of their programs, the Endangered Instruments program.
Yeah, I know about it.
So I got free bassoon lessons in a group lesson format. Me and the other student in my middle school bands. Once a week, this incredible teacher, Francine Peterson, would come down to our school to take us out of the band class and work with us individually, but also like have us do duets. Wow, I was so lucky is all I can say about that, because the bassoon was just too cool. I mean, that's sort of history. And then, a couple of years after I started playing, I was a student at the Marrowstone Music Festival, got a scholarship to do that by working on the stage crew also.
Nice.
I was so lucky that there were all these opportunities that were tied to scholarships that were available to me. And I just got somebody had to play the contrabass. I just got assigned to it. It was this big thing in a box, basically, and I played it, and I just thought, like, this is me.
Yeah.
So
wow.
That's sort of my origin story.
Yeah, and so when in that process did you go to Interlaken?
So I guess the full name is probably Interlaken Center for the Arts. It's a campus in northwestern Michigan in the middle of nowhere, and I mean nowhere. I mean there is you got to travel a while to get to a town that is smaller than any suburb of Portland. And during the school year, it runs as an academy, like a boarding school. And then during the summer, it runs as an arts festival and an arts camp. And what happened there more or less was that by the time I got into high school, I was having a little bit of just, I don't know, the school environment wasn't really working for me anymore. I was having a little bit of a hard time, and but the one thing I was still really devoted to was music. And my bassoon teacher got a call from the bassoon teacher there. They had something like, I guess, 6 students would be returning to the academy, and they were all seniors. And so they were freaking out, thinking, well, they're all going to graduate and we're going to have nobody.
Yeah.
We got to start seeing who's out there.
Yeah.
And she encouraged me to put an audition tape together, and she said, they're desperate. They've got money. And that all sounded very good to me. I found out more about the school. I thought this would be a great place for me to, I mean, you know, not to just take digs at my public school or anything. You know, I know that people were doing the best they could, but like I was in a biology class with 50 kids. And if you weren't one of the first 30 to show up to the classroom, you didn't have a seat. I sat on like a counter, you know, and took notes on my lap. You know, and all of a sudden I had this opportunity to go to this place where, you know, I mean, I was in a math class with 4 other kids. It sort of reinvigorated me academically, on top of being this place where I could focus very specifically on doing bassoon. I don't mean to pretend for a second that I was not very, very lucky to have that opportunity, that they needed bassoons, and that they, you know, were willing to work with a family that didn't have the money to send me there by any other means.
Yeah. How long were you there? All of high school?
2 years.
Junior
In
and
my
senior.
junior and senior year of high school.
Okay.
I watched all those seniors go through this application process for colleges, and that was sort of a turning point for me. You know, it was. Some students are so good. I see this in some of my private students. You know, some students are so good at balancing 20 different things. I was having a really hard time balancing. I mean, I had a very intense public high school jazz band experience. Went to this school, it's called Garfield High School in Seattle, Washington. Had just a sort of a legendary program doing. I mean, I was out gigging like 2 or 3 times a week.
Wow. Okay.
You know, dragging an electric keyboard to like local coffee shops and playing to raise money for the program. You know, but then I was also I was in a woodwind quintet, and we were trying to raise money for this orchestra program, and then I was in the youth symphony, and I was doing I was torn in so many different directions. I had to quit jazz piano.
Yeah.
And that sort of you know, homing in on bassoon as maybe this is the only thing. And then I started composing at 13, you know, through the Seattle Symphony had a you know, a program for young composers. It was just so many things, you know. I really ended up feeling for myself that I had to choose one and focus.
Sure.
But I'm inspired by the students who are able to wear many hats, you know. Anyway, that's how I ended up kind of applying to conservatories. And then I went to Juilliard for my undergraduate.
Yeah. And what years were you at Interlochen, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, this will date me, but I got there in the fall of 2000, 20 years ago.
The fall of 2000. The reason why I ask is that when I had just graduated high school in Costa Rica,
okay,
and my youth orchestra, the Costa Rican National Youth Orchestra, we traveled to Interlochen.
Yeah,
and I think it was 2002. Were you there?
Yep.
Seriously?
Yeah.
You
Wow.
know what that means? We
played Tchaikovsky's Fifth Symphony.
Yes, we did. And you know who was my stand partner for that? Melissa White.
Oh, I love Melissa.
So that is crazy.
So great. Oh.
So we played that Tchaikovsky number 5 and
Ginastera.
And Ginastera, that's right, Estancia.
That was my first time hearing Ginastera. That piece had a profound effect on me.
Oh, really?
That's
so cool.
Oh my gosh, the harmonies and the rhythms, that was a real turning point for me, compositionally, and just, I mean, it was these harmonies that I was more familiar with from jazz piano.
Yeah.
all these chordal harmonies, kind of based around the open tuning of the guitar, and but the way that he moves them around is kind of influenced by Hindemith and Roy Harris, and I hadn't played classical music that had that language and that, oh gosh, and I came away with maybe Vidya Casada. Yeah. So Vidya gave us a recording of you guys playing that, and I think maybe Panambi also. I just remember thinking like what a great week that was to get to know. I wish I gotten to know you, but I got to know more of the wind players.
Sure, that is so
Vidya
cool.
and I were later at Juilliard together.
Yeah.
And one of the things I got, Matt Hazelwood he was the orchestra director.
Yes.
He's the guy who got me involved in Philharmónica Joven de Colombia, and many years later.
Sure.
But that connection that Interlochen had, because Matt had conducted in Colombia, this is, if there's one thing I want to leave with your students already, hopefully people have got this from me talking about my own experience. Like if you lean in and you look, and sometimes even if you're not looking, music will give you these opportunities. And they're not just professional opportunities to take you to the next level in your musical career. They're life opportunities. They're opportunities to connect with people you would not otherwise probably have connected with.
Yes.
And that was, I just remember how emotional we all were after our final concert, and thinking like, oh my gosh, after this week of me using my very limited Spanish, and the bassoonists using limited English, but coming together to play, and Matt kind of leading rehearsals bilingually. It was just, it's too cool. Yeah. Most of the traveling that I did before, just even including the traveling I've done in the last few years, most of the traveling around the world that I've been so fortunate to do has come from music. I've maybe only taken like one international trip for pleasure. Two, maybe.
Yeah. Music opens doors, and if you're open and ready for them, it will bring many wonderful things to your life. And it's such a small world, this world of music.
Yeah.
I mean, that is so cool.
My mind is blown. I can't believe you were a part of that. That is so cool. What was that like? I don't know. Had you traveled to Interlochen or the US before that?
I mean, like you, most of my traveling in my life has been thanks to music. And my very first time in the US was 2 years before that. I went to a summer festival, a summer camp in Tennessee, the Sewanee Summer Music Festival. And I did that for 2 summers. And it was absolutely a life-changing experience. Before that, my first time outside of Costa Rica was also with the youth orchestra. We went to Spain.
Okay, cool.
And then, we had those years, we traveled quite a lot. And that trip to Interlochen really was just unforgettable for all of us.
Oh gosh, we were so embarrassed. We were worried that, I remember just being terrified. Like, how are we going to explain how bad the cafeteria food is? I mean, because it's legendarily bad. I heard informally that it gets a little better like in the summers. I never went to Interlochen in the summers. I couldn't afford to be honest.
Me neither.
But oh my gosh, we just thought this is so embarrassing. This is like
Anyway. Well, but if you had asked us, I mean, it's just everything is new for us. Like, we're this Costa Rican youth orchestra, and like everything is new. So I don't know. We were just so thrilled to be there. I don't even remember the food being bad.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad. I just thought, how can we as like ambassadors of this country bring someone here and then feed them just like
that's really fun.
Basically what we ate on a regular basis. Anyway, okay. So yeah, that's
okay.
Yeah.
I would love to share the video that you sent us of you playing a piece of music.
Okay.
That I would love for you to introduce, and then we'll play the first movement of I think it's 2 movements in the video, but we'll play the first one.
Yeah. So this piece is a piece that I recorded just a couple months ago called Baso Nova, which is sort of a kitschy title. It's by the British composer Colin Matthews, and he wrote it for David Breidenthal, who was the principal bassoonist of the Los Angeles Philharmonic before our current principal bassoonist, Whitney Crockett. It's for solo bassoon. It ended up kind of on my plate because the other bassoonists were like, no, we're not going to touch this. I'm sort of known as the guy who is, I don't know if I'm a glutton for punishment. It's just really, the worst part is it sounds easier than it is, but it's just full of awkward intervals. It's really all over the place. But I love pieces like this. To me, it's you kind of get to show some of the things that are really unique about the bassoon. We're good at leaps. It's one of the weirdest things. It just, the instrument, it's because it's got low fundamentals, and the keys are there's a bunch of weird keys, but they're still laid out within reach of your fingers, you know. And even if you have to play 4 of them at once with your left hand thumb or something, you know, once you get the hang of it, it's like, oh, I can jump 3 octaves like in like nothing, you know. Whereas for a string player, that's like a physical distance. Yeah. So this piece is kind of, it's jumpy, it's a little crazy, it's all over the place, and I don't know what else to say about it. The rhythmic elements of like clever 8th note patterns that you might find in Baso Nova are also kind of found here.
Yeah, awesome. All right, let's take a listen.
All right.
well, that one, you're shredding here. That's
Oh.
a lot of notes. And you know what? You do make it sound easy.
Oh, well, thanks. It's sometimes you're hanging on for dear life. That was, I think, oh my gosh, I did like 20 takes.
Yeah.
The whole thing is on YouTube. You can watch it. It's about
Yes.
10 minutes.
And we'll make sure to link that in the comments to this.
Yeah.
To this.
One of these like very LA things about that recording was that the end of the first movement is so hard, and I finally got like a really clean take of it. I was so proud of it. And then these like helicopters start going by overhead, and I just said, no, I'm keeping this. So you see me roll my eyes. I'm sorry, I can't. I don't have a good poker face.
Yeah. But you know what? I mean, in the era of COVID and remote performances, and we're all making these videos. I think it's kind of part of our reality now, right?
Yeah, I'm so impressed with what you guys are doing. I just, Paloma Griffin-Ibarra is a good friend of mine, and so she's been keeping me updated on how you guys are staying engaged and putting videos together. We've all in music, those of us who are instrumentalists, we've kind of been forced to become amateur audiovisual people.
Sure.
And learning these skills. These are things that, like, to be completely honest, we probably should have been taught. Those of us who went to universities and conservatories. In my time at Portland State, I saw, no offense, Juilliard, but I saw a much better AV and recording and notation, teaching. I think John Newton is the teacher. It was much better than what I got at Juilliard. And it goes to show it's not, it's not your pedigree that counts. It's what you do with your life.
Sure. Yeah. And well, thank you for your kind words, first of all, about what we're doing at MYS. But I agree with you, I mean, for all of us musicians and music students currently, all of these skills that you learn that are not necessarily directly related to playing your instrument are going to come handy, and you never know how, you never know when, and a combination of those skills with your musical skills will open doors you don't even know exist, right?
Yeah, absolutely. In the same way that to learn an instrument teaches you life lessons that go so far beyond playing notes.
Yes.
That's one of those things that I wish I had, I kind of trusted it because I respected my teachers and they were telling me that. But you sort of have to trust it, on faith at first, because when you're just, you're practicing scales and long tones and etudes, you kind of wonder, like, how is this gonna help me do anything but play the bassoon?
Right.
Anyway, we can get into that later.
It's very true. It's very true.
I'm so glad you guys are doing this. I can't wait to see the final products.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we are excited, actually. We just had our second rehearsal of the season this past Saturday. And the truth is that we're applying all the things we learned back in the spring when we were all forced to just dive right into this unknown world, right? So we are excited, and we're thankful for the support and the fact that students, I would say, are not only engaged but also excited, and we're trying to sort of use the format, like take advantage of the format rather than work against it, right? Of course, like everybody else, we cannot wait to making music back in person, right? But until we get there, there are fun and creative things that we can do.
I want to put a plug in then. This is one of the things I'm so fortunate to live in a city with. I mean, sometimes I curse the weather because I'm such a Northwesterner at heart. I can't function if it's over 80 outside. But I was able to participate in a few weeks of recording at the Hollywood Bowl, and I was surrounded by like a 6 foot tall plexiglass shield. Beyond that is my second bassoonist, who is surrounded in the same plexiglass shield, and all we're like these, the wind section, a row that normally, if you've got two bassoons and two clarinets, we were recording like Beethoven Seventh was one of the things we recorded. Usually the whole of us fits in maybe 10 feet, and now we're 40 feet across, But we met as an orchestra, and the first thing that we played is also something that they released as a free promo, which was the last movement of Mother Goose Suite by Ravel. And you can find this at any of the LA Phil's, social media, or I could find a link, and I think it's on YouTube. It was just so emotional after all these months to meet again. Yeah. I'll be honest, like the first couple of weeks of this, when I was off work, I just put everything down. And I said, it's going to be okay for me to do this. Mm-hmm. Even then, I just sort of had this inkling like this could be a minute, that we're at home. And oh my gosh, it was like water in the desert. Yeah. Even under those circumstances, we're very fortunate to have been able to do this, to have an outdoor venue that's that big, and to have these resources, and then to be able to do this. And it was very, so many, there's a New Yorker article that just came out talking about those sessions. I had no idea that anyone was there kind of watching us. But, just to, even at a distance, we're all at our own tables, kind of backstage, no one's going too close, but we're all, smiling, winking, and nodding. I got in trouble for elbow bumping one of my colleagues, it's like, what can you do? Yeah. But as it's just totally bonkers as all of that was, it filled my heart. And even the online recording and all of this stuff, it fills my heart.
Yeah, it feels good.
Anyway, so check that out, and
we will add the link to that also.
We are, all of us, MYS and LA Phil and Oregon Symphony. Everyone is finding new ways to reach our communities. Yeah. Life gave us lemons, and there's only so much you can do about that. Mm-hmm. But there is something you can do about that. But musically, we're going to make lemonade. Yes. And we just have to make sure that that we're not giving lemons again, if we can. Yeah. Anyway, okay.
And if we do, hopefully we will have learned something about how to deal with a situation like this.
That's right.
Yeah. Yes. Evan, let's play the game that we play on the MYS Hangouts, Two Truths and a Lie.
Okay, can you remind me what these are?
I will. So actually what I'll do is I am going to read those statements out loud as I reveal them on the screen. And my job is to try and guess which one is the lie. Okay, and if I get it right, I win. If I get it wrong, you win. Okay.
I told you I have a very bad poker face. I'll try to.
Sure. Yeah. You have to channel your inner actor here. Okay.
It's really bad. Yeah.
Here we go. Statement A. You, Evan, once accompanied René Fleming on the accordion. It's a very good poker face, by the way. Statement B, and let's put that up on the screen right now. You, Evan, learned the saxophone in 3 months to go on an all-expenses-paid trip to Italy for a summer. And statement C, you, Evan, appeared with your sister on Oprah for a segment about, quote, talented siblings. Okay, end quote. So here's... Now, I'm just taking a quick look here. You have, in your career with the Oregon Symphony and the LA Philharmonic and other orchestras, you have accompanied many, world-class artists, and René Fleming is one of them. So the accordion part, you do play the piano, and you're a very versatile musician. So I see that. I can see that happening. Statement B, saxophone in 3 months, all expenses paid trip to Italy for a summer. So that checks out with your traveling, thanks to music. And you're an extraordinary musician. So I can also see you learning the saxophone in three months. Also, you played clarinet in middle school, so that helps saxophone playing. And statement C, you appeared with your sister in opera, and your sister plays horn and play the violin so you guys. The opera part is the part that's a little crazy. But so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try and find one of the truths, and I'm gonna say that A, René Fleming accompanied by you on the accordion. I'm going to say that's true. So
That is true.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
I wondered if you. I thought, oh my God, first of all, you're so good at this. Oh my gosh, you're like all the like logic and everything. I'm just like, I should have made this harder, but I couldn't.
This is Hangout number 54, so I've had a lot of practice.
Okay. Yeah. That absolutely happens on stage at the Schnitz. So
Okay.
yeah, it was terrifying. I was maybe more nervous for that than a lot of things I've ever done. That there was this piece with accordion, and I agreed to do it. I did pick up the accordion first in high school.
Okay.
And oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah, I had like a secondhand accordion. I think my mom gave it to my stepdad as like a birthday gift or something. And it's funny, he almost never picked it up, but I would use it all the time. I played it at Juilliard a couple times. Oh my gosh, it's totally self-taught on that instrument. Anyway,
did you volunteer for this?
Somebody heard that I could do it, and I think the personnel manager asked me. I said, "Send me the part right now, and I'll tell you," because I didn't want to get over my head. And there were a couple things that were just like, I don't want to get into like how the left hand of the accordion is laid out on, well, on certain accordions, but it's like, I play what's called a 120 bass, which means there are 120 buttons in the left hand, and it's anyway, yeah. I can't say I did a perfect job, but I think I figured out what I needed to do. And Renee Flacucci just it was so weird to just like look back to the contra bassoon player, and here I am with this thing. Oh gosh.
Well, hey, at the very least, now you have this story to tell, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I maybe it was a mistake to agree to that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, probably not. But okay. So now this is the moment where I have to really guess for the lie. So I'm just gonna go ahead and say that the opera statement is a lie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
You got that.
I got it.
And I wondered whether I should even put this in there, because I'll be brief because I'm sure I'm talking for 9 years, but
No.
the thing about that was it almost happened.
Okay.
We got okay, so Juilliard got contacted. My sister also went to Juilliard for her undergrad, and Juilliard got contacted to send some siblings, and there were these other siblings. They used to call themselves the Five Browns. I'm not sure if they still call themselves that, but this like family, and they were five siblings who all played piano, and you could probably look them up. They were pretty amazing. They were all at Juilliard, and I think they were just looking for some other people, and so we were trading emails with this segment producer, and like I guess we just didn't respond fast enough, or someone at the top said, this really isn't that interesting. so we got cut.
Yeah, well, I still thought that it was very likely that but out of the three statements, I think so. I went with my gut. So
I'm so glad too, because they said, oh, and then you got to bring bring your instruments on and then play like a duet, and we're like, the literature for bassoon and horn is tiny, and it's not especially good. So.
Wow. Okay, and tell me about your saxophone trip.
My saxophone career. Yeah, so it's funny, like, even though I did play the clarinet really badly, I have to stress that, like, I was everything that a music student should not be. I almost never practiced. In the 2.5 or 3 years that I played clarinet in school band, I practiced maybe 1 or 2 times. That is the seriousness I brought to that instrument. I'm so sorry, clarinet players. But I was, during that same time, I was practicing piano every day.
Sure.
Like I said, it was just this social thing that I just wanted to be in the band. Anyway, so yeah, Juilliard famously did not have a classical saxophone department, and an email went out to all of the clarinet and bassoon and maybe oboe players, saying, does anyone play? Because we got hired to be the orchestra for the Festival de Due Mondi in Spoleto, Italy, which is this like, 2-month extravaganza in the summer. It doesn't happen anymore, unfortunately. But, they had programmed a chamber opera called Der Kaiser of Atlantis by Victor Ullmann. Incredible piece. Hugely recommend. No one knows it. Was written in prison camp during World War II. None of the casts, I think maybe like one singer managed to survive and smuggled the manuscript to like an apartment in London where it was later discovered, like in the 1980s, well after the war, and they realized like this performance had been mounted, but it's like a thinly veiled critique of the Nazis and Hitler. It's incredible.
Sure.
Has an alto sax part because they had to use the instruments that were on hand. Has a harmonium part. Has like very limited like weird percussion. It's fascinating. And so this piece was programmed, and and then also the old castle from Pictures from Exhibition. And I literally only learned the fingerings to the notes that were in these pieces. Like if someone asked me to play a scale, I probably couldn't have done it. I borrowed an instrument. I took lessons very briefly from a very skeptical local saxophone professor who was wondering why his students had not been asked. I kind of kept my mouth shut about that. So much in music is just like, if you see an opportunity, like grab onto it. And for all I knew, other students would maybe go through with this as well. I didn't really know. I just kept at it. I practiced those parts like crazy. And I took this audition and just totally as a miracle, because at that time I was pretty young in my bassoon tenure. I was on the wait list to go as a bassoonist, but this was like my foot in the door. Yeah. And I turned out I only had to play those 2 pieces all summer long. So I had a few weeks off where I took the per diem that they were giving us and I explored Italy. This is one of those things where it's just like, it might seem, sometimes I always told students this, whether it's a scholarship or a competition or, obviously you don't want to do anything where your teacher just says like, no, don't do this. It'll be bad for you. But my teacher was like, yeah, give it a shot. Just, keep practicing bassoon, don't forget about it. Yeah. Actually, I did the Sarasota Music Festival on bassoon directly before. I flew directly from Florida to Italy, and so it was this intense bassoon experience. And then I went straight I still practice bassoon over the summer in Italy, but oh my gosh. Yeah. I'd never been to Europe, and what an opportunity it was to make music that way. Yeah. So yeah, I don't recommend it. Again, like I have my landlord and neighbor is a tremendous saxophone player. His name's Pat Posey. Look him up. He's got videos all over YouTube and stuff. The classical saxophone and the saxophone in general, like, are instruments that are not people joke about it. It's not easy. It's maybe it's easier to make a noise on the saxophone than say the oboe, but like you want to be really good at the saxophone. You want to play it in tune. You want to like be able to play with a professional orchestra and fit in like that. Those are things that are very hard, and I developed an appreciation for it that summer. I worked my butt off, believe me. Cool. But it's just one of those things. Yeah. It's a crazy opportunity that I was crazy enough to go for.
And that's my story. Suddenly you were hanging out in Italy, and you probably like, I'm sure you had moments where you just kind of like sit back and just look around and you're like, how am I here? Right?
It was unbelievable. I mean, I kept a travel journal. The things that, traveling, especially right now, it seems almost cruel to talk about it, right? Sure. It's such a privilege, but for those of us who didn't have certain advantages like growing up, it's a privilege that music will sometimes afford to you. And I hope that on the other side of all of this, that continues. You guys coming from Costa Rica to America, me getting invited to go teach in Colombia or just like, spending after hours time in the practice room, once I put in my 4 hours on the bassoon, picking up a saxophone and trying to learn this instrument and sound passable on it. it takes you places, and it changed the person that I was to be alone in a foreign country, where I don't speak the language, but and I still have these journals that I wrote about it, to have these experiences like I don't know if you've ever experienced this like in Italy, and certainly at the time, like the train workers would sometimes just go on strike like in the middle of the day for like a half hour. And but it's like a strike. Like they just like we're striking. Yeah. But like for like a half an hour. But in that half hour, like the one train you need to catch gets canceled and you're stranded at some like station in the middle of nowhere. And so now I'm like, okay, well now I'm in the middle of nowhere. Somehow I have to get back to this other tiny city where this festival is happening. There was one day where I actually, the day I had to get back, I had an opera performance at 8 p.m. And I was like, well, easy. It's only like a 4-hour train ride back. I'll just get up in the morning and I'll take the train. I didn't get back into the train station until 7:30 p.m. Oof. And I hadn't played like sax in, like 5 days. The train station was at the bottom of the hill that this town is built on, and the theater is at the top. And I ran up there, grabbed the sax from like the dorm room where I was staying, run into the performance, put it together. I'm like covered in sweat, barely form an embouchure. Oh my gosh, I don't recommend that to anybody. Wow. But I had this fantasy where like, I get back at noon and I play for an hour and it all comes back to.
Yeah, wow, that's kind of scary.
I want to tell students like the things that you feel strangely compelled to do in, let's say, your teenage years or 20s, like these, kind of pushing your own limits. And here I'm not talking to like, illegal activity or something. Sure. I'm talking about as a young musician, as a young artist, take chances. Yeah. Because that was, it's too long of a story to go into, but the reason I stayed an extra day was because I was learning so much about who I was, and I was having this unique experience. Growing up, I rarely, left like the city I grew up in, and all of a sudden I'm halfway across the world, and what if this never happens for me again? And they say seize the day. That I think is my advice, within reason, but it's the way that you can like afford, not financially, but just afford to live, and the way you feel compelled to live in that time of your life, late teen years and early 20s, like that is not a time, in my opinion, to play it safe, is all I have to say about that. That's probably, I can see myself being roundly criticized by so many parents, and I get it, but I'm talking very specifically about things like answering an email that you normally would have said, I have no business taking a sax audition.
Right, sure.
I have no business being on Oprah. I have no business playing the accordion behind Renee Fleming. They say that people in their final years of life have reported they regret not the things that they've done, but the things that they didn't do.
Sure.
The chances that they didn't take. Those are the things that you always look back, and I have many, believe me. I don't dwell on them as a fact, only as that impetus to do more.
Yeah. Well, and I think you and your work and your journey are all a testament to these ideas,
Yeah.
And very clearly, Evan, you're full of gratitude. You're very
I hope so.
Grateful for all of these things that, yes, in a way, things that have happened to you, but none of these things would have gone anywhere had you not had the right attitude and the right, set of skills, but also the right support network of teachers and people that you trusted and that you trust to help guide you through all of these, adventures. And every single one of those adventures has led to where you are now. working with the LA
And I
Phil
am.
living in LA. And for,
Yeah.
each one of us, we all have different journeys and different stories, but all of those decisions and chances, lead to where you are. And above all, I think it's really inspiring. And my personal biggest takeaway from hanging out with you is just this sense of gratitude.
Oh, I hope so, because I feel very lucky. And um, to piggyback on what you're saying, you know, I got very lucky in terms of the specific teachers. I try to be this person for my students more than anything, because I am so fortunate to have had such excellent teachers who invested their time and their energy in me in a way that changed my life. Whether or not I became a professional bassoonist, that's almost the least of it. And I also want to say that so many of the people, occasionally maybe I'd meet somebody at a reception, but so many of the people who gave of their means so that I could have a scholarship to be in a youth orchestra, or go to a school, or that an orchestra should even exist. I will never meet most of those people, and yet they've changed my life. And I hear from audience members that, wow, someone will say after, if I run into somebody on the way out, or home from work, and we've just played who knows what, I'm trying, every performance I approach is trying to leave someone, changed, better, hopefully, or just different, or, give them an experience that will be memorable. We cannot afford as musicians to not do this. This is what we have to do.
Yeah.
It's really our calling, if anything, in my opinion. I know that's opinion, but I just want to say that, now, to be in a position now where I can, occasionally make donations. I realize how important it is to be that person, and it's not about finances. Before I could do that, I put myself in a position where I'm donating of my time and my energy, and I've just always felt that was necessary, because this was paid to me. I will spend my life paying this forward. I hope that is what this is.
Yes.
And I didn't even get into what an incredible organization I am a part of. Now, the Oregon Symphony, though, is an incredible organization, and MYS is an incredible organization. I saw so many incredible things happen in the years that I was a coach, I'm grateful that you were able to be that person, and you do such a good job at it for your students, because it really, if it does for any person a quarter as much as what it did for me in my own life, it will all have been worth it.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I ramble a lot, if you haven't noticed. So
No, but again, just all of these things that you're saying are so important, and I also appreciate your kind words about what we do, but I agree with you. As musicians and as educators and as artists, we have the ability and the responsibility to use our art to change people and to bring joy. And this hangout, Evan, has been delightful. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us. I think we're going to have you back, because I do want to ask you. I have a lot more questions also about your work with the Oregon Symphony and your work with the LA Philharmonic and your work as a composer. It was truly a pleasure speaking with you, Evan. And for all of you watching, check the description of this video. We will add links to all of these things and all of these people we talked about. And Evan, enjoy the rest of your season. I hope that we all gradually get to play more in person. And whenever you come to visit in Portland, we hope to see you here as well.
Thank you so much, Raúl. Thank you for the opportunity. We'll be recording some more in the coming weeks. If you follow the LA Phil on social media, you'll see clips of this, and I'll give you instructions for how to access even more of the content that we're trying to put out there for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
if you have any other questions that I could not get to, just pass them to me. I'll answer them. I'll answer them in comments on whatever. I'm not good at social media. Let's just leave it at that. But if people have questions, I've got answers, I hope.
Sounds good.
All right, take care.
I'll talk to you later.
You too. Take care.
Okay. That was Evan Kuhlmann, contrabassoon of the Los Angeles Philharmonic. We're very grateful to Evan for spending time with us, and I will see all of you next week at the next MYS Virtual Hangout. Until then, take care.